Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into another video. This is how to stop trying to control when your mind won't let you walk away from fixing everything. And I know that's a really long title, but really it's just how to let go of that control when your mind really just wants you to be able to fix everything. And so earlier this week in the pod, we talked about why we have that need to control and what it is, where it comes from and what it's doing for us. And in a nutshell, it comes from our fear that was created in childhood when our nervous system knew that we couldn't count on the people around us to keep us safe. So we started trying to keep ourselves safe by controlling everything. But that control only keeps you in a state of constant chaos. You're constantly trying to grasp on to everything and guide everything where you think it needs to be in order for to limit the amounts of chaos that you're experiencing. But grasping on to things never created a less chaotic environment. In fact, you will find that the more you grasp, the more things that you end up trying to control, and the less you surrender and let go of the things that are, one, out of your control, and two, that God could really take control of and do something with. So the first thing is that you have to understand that control is not a moral failure. Like, you're not failing at being a good person because you need to control everything. You're not failing at being a Christian or loving God because you're trying to control everything. You have a nervous system habit that you have developed, and you have to understand that that nervous system habit is one that you can break, but it's also one that was created very early on in your formative years. So it's going to take a minute to unearth why it happened and to stop doing the things that created that habit in the first place. And so we really have to understand that there's nothing wrong with us because we're trying to control, and really tell yourself that there's nothing wrong with me. 90% of the world is trying to control something, so there's nothing wrong with me in trying to control, but that I need to understand my fear. And understanding your fear is really the second step in this. Accepting that there's nothing wrong with you is the first, but trying to understand that fear is the second. Like, what am I afraid of? And I know for me, like I talked about my eating disorder when it comes to these type of control things, but there's other things that I think that my control comes out in, and most of them have the same fear, that if I'm not controlling, then people are going to perceive me a certain way. And my perfectionism hat wants people to perceive me in the best possible light that they can. And so if I'm not controlling it, then how do I control the perception? And while I know that that's not true, because the way people perceive me has nothing to do with, one, who I truly am and how I'm walking in the world, because people's perceptions are going to be based on their own experiences and their opinions, but also I don't need for that to be my goal, to control people's perceptions. And the more I try to do that, the more I limit myself to being who I truly am, because I'm so worried about how people are going to see me for who I am operating in the world as. And then the third thing is really learning how to regulate your nervous system. So when you start to feel panicked because you're not in control, when you start to create narratives that don't actually exist, when you start to overthink and ruminate in your thoughts, you can stop those thought patterns. And that is a very difficult habit to break, but one that really works in these instances. So when you feel yourself starting to spiral, you just say, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to believe narratives that don't exist. When you feel yourself starting to spiral, you say, I'm not subscribing to those thought patterns anymore. I'm not going to believe that to be true. When you feel yourself starting to panic because you can't control the things, do your breath work. Take deep breaths, say a prayer, tell yourself that you don't need to be in control because you don't. And eventually those feelings and emotions will pass. And then lastly, you have to start practicing more surrender. You can't get used to surrendering if you don't practice surrender daily. So when those thought patterns come up, you can say, I'm surrendering these thoughts to you. I am no longer going to ruminate on things that I know are not going to benefit me. When you feel yourself getting frustrated, you can say, I surrender this situation to you. I feel myself getting frustrated. Tell me what you want me to do and where you want me to act and where you want me to be obedient, and you take over the rest. When things start to get you out of your emotional element and into a space that really isn't you, practice surrendering those things, because the more you surrender, the more you're going to be able to surrender, the more you're going to feel when surrender needs to take place, and the more you're going to rely on surrendering as opposed to your own control. So really think about these situations this week. You have to be very self-aware to change this habit, but you're going to pick a space this week where you feel yourself doing your normal habits. We're going to call it a little activity and micro surrender. And instead of doing what you normally would do, you're going to let go of the control of that thing. You're going to observe your feelings, but then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to surrender this thing. I don't need to control this thing. I don't need to identify with the fear that's controlling this thing. I can actually release it and let it go. Because the only way that you're going to experience emotional freedom is if you let go of putting control in the space that other emotions could be roaming free. You can't experience joy, happiness, and all of the emotions that you want to be experiencing if fear and control are sitting in its place and taking priority and precedence over those emotions. So, thank you for tuning in. I hope these steps help you to surrender those areas where you need to give up control. And if this video resonated with you, go to all of my socials and subscribe to those pages. Follow me there, like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure that you share this video with somebody that you think it would resonate with, because it could just be the catalyst that they need to break free from the bondage that they're in, to surrender what they're experiencing so that they may have a life of freedom. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.